The Mars face mystery rite. Picture this for a moment. You're scrolling through your morning news, coffee in hand, probably thinking about your mundane Tuesday ahead. Then suddenly, you see it. A photograph that changes everything you thought you knew about our place in the universe. A massive human face, carved into the red surface of Mars, staring back at Earth with hollow eyes that seem to hold secrets spanning millennia. Sounds like something from a sci-fi film, doesn't it? Well, I'm afraid it's not fiction, mate. This actually happened. In 1976, NASA's Viking 1 orbiter captured what would become one of the most controversial photographs in human history. And here's the kicker. The next day, NASA tried to convince the world it was all just a trick of light and shadow. But here's what they didn't tell you. The second photograph they claimed proved it was an illusion. It was dodgy, completely fabricated, which begs the rather uncomfortable question, what exactly is our government hiding about the red planet? And more importantly, why are they so desperate to keep us from knowing the truth? Main content. Now, before we dive headfirst into this rabbit hole of cosmic proportions, let me set the scene properly. We're talking about 1976 here, a time when disco was king, punk rock was just emerging, and the Cold War had everyone on edge. The space race was in full swing, and Mars had become humanity's next great obsession. For decades, scientists and dreamers alike had been absolutely fascinated by our neighboring planet. Every mission, every photograph, every tiny scrap of data fueled the burning question that kept astronomers awake at night. Was there life on Mars? But nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, was prepared for what NASA's cameras would reveal on that fateful day in July. Let me take you back to the beginning of this extraordinary tale. NASA had launched not one, but two orbiters towards the red planet, Viking 1 and Viking 2. These mechanical marvels represented the pinnacle of 1970s technology, equipped with cameras capable of capturing unprecedented detail of the Martian surface. The mission was straightforward enough. Scout out the best landing sites for their robotic counterparts and give us Earthlings our first proper look at Mars. On the 25th of July, 1976, Viking 1 was doing exactly what it was designed to do, methodically scanning the Martian landscape, searching for that perfect landing spot. The orbiter was focused on a region called Cydonia, an area that seemed promising for exploration. The terrain appeared relatively flat. Visibility looked decent, and there were interesting rock formations scattered about. Everything seemed perfectly routine. But then, something happened that would turn the scientific world completely upside down. Picture the scene at NASA's control center. Scientists hunched over computer monitors, methodically examining thousands upon thousands of images streaming back from space. It was tedious work. Really, most of the photographs showed nothing more than endless expanses of red rock and dust. But then one scientist, going through the routine process of cataloging these images, spotted something that made his blood run cold. There, etched into the rusty surface of Cydonia, was something that simply shouldn't exist. A structure so remarkably familiar, yet so impossibly out of place, that it defied all logic and reason. It was a face. Not just any face, mind you, but a massive human face, nearly 2 miles across, staring up from the Martian surface, with features so distinct and precise that they could have been carved by a master sculptor. The face had everything you'd expect. 2 clearly defined eyes, a prominent nose, and what appeared to be a mouth. The level of detail was absolutely staggering. This wasn't some vague rock formation that vaguely resembled a face if you squinted and used your imagination. No, this was unmistakably, undeniably humanoid. The scientist who first spotted it immediately called over his colleagues. Can you imagine that moment? The stunned silence as they gathered around the monitor, staring at this impossible image. The growing excitement as they realized the magnitude of what they were looking at. This wasn't just another pretty picture from space. This could be evidence of an ancient civilization on Mars. But here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean deeply suspicious. When NASA decided to release this image to the public, they didn't present it as the earth-shattering discovery it potentially was. Instead, they tried to downplay it, suggesting it was merely an interesting natural formation. Like when you look up at clouds and see the shape of a bunny rabbit or something? The comparison is laughable. Really, we're talking about a 2-mile wide structure with perfect symmetry and human-like features. And NASA wanted us to believe it was just a cosmic coincidence, that millions of years of wind erosion had somehow carved what appeared to be a face into the Martian surface. Well, the public wasn't having any of it. Almost immediately, researchers, enthusiasts, and ordinary citizens began questioning NASA's rather convenient explanation. To them, this structure looked far too precise, far too intentional to have been formed by natural processes alone. The mathematical probability of wind and erosion creating such a detailed, symmetrical face was astronomical. And so began one of the most heated debates in modern astronomy. On one side, you had NASA and the established scientific community, desperately trying to maintain that this was nothing more than an optical illusion, a case of humans seeing patterns where none existed. On the other side, you had independent researchers and truth seekers who refused to accept such a simplistic explanation. But let me tell you something that makes this whole situation even more intriguing. The fascination with potential Martian civilizations didn't start in 1976. Oh no, this obsession goes back much further than that. Cast your mind back to 1877, Victorian England, gaslight, and all that jazz. An Italian astronomer named Giovanni Schiaparelli was peering through his telescope at Mars, making detailed observations of markings on the planet's surface. He called these markings canali, which simply means channels in Italian. Perfectly innocent term, really. But here's where things got lost in translation. Quite literally. The English-speaking media got hold of Schiaparelli's observations and somehow transformed canali into canals. Now, that might seem like a minor distinction, but it completely changed the implications. Channels could be natural formations carved by water or wind. Canals, however, implied artificial construction, engineering on a planetary scale. This mistranslation sparked decades of speculation about intelligent Martian life. If there were canals on Mars, the reasoning went, then surely some advanced civilization must have built them. The idea captured the public imagination in a way that's difficult to comprehend today. Mars wasn't just another planet. It was potentially home to an alien sea. The government, naturally, wasn't about to let such wild theories run unchecked. They poured significant resources into developing better technology to get clearer images of Mars, and hopefully put these outlandish claims to rest once and for all. In 1965, they launched the Mariner 4 probe, which flew past Mars and sent back over 20 images. Scientists and researchers waited with bated breath for these new, higher quality photographs. Finally, they thought, we'd get some definitive answers about these mysterious canals. But the images that came back were devastating for those hoping to find evidence of Martian civilization. The photographs showed a world that looked remarkably similar to our own moon, barren, crater-riddled, and utterly devoid of the canal network that Schiaparelli had observed. There were no signs of water, no evidence of vegetation, and certainly no indication of intelligent life. The disappointment was palpable. Dreams of Martian cities and advanced alien civilizations seemed to evaporate in the face of these stark, lifeless images. Mars, it appeared, was just another dead rock floating through space. For more than a decade, that's how things stood. Mars had been relegated from a potentially inhabited world to just another barren planet. Interest waned, funding decreased, and the romantic notion of Martian civilization seemed to belong firmly in the realm of science fiction. But then, 1976 arrived, and with it, the Viking missions that would change everything. The Viking 1 orbiter's cameras were far superior to anything that had come before. Where Mariner 4 had given us grainy, low-resolution glimpses of the Martian surface, Viking 1 provided crisp, detailed images that revealed the planet in stunning clarity. When that NASA scientist, a chap named Toby Owen, was assigned to study these images, looking for suitable landing sites, he was expecting routine geological surveys. What he found instead was image 35A72, the photograph that would spark decades of controversy and conspiracy theories. Owen was genuinely excited by the discovery. Here was clear evidence of something extraordinary on Mars, something that deserved serious scientific investigation. NASA seemed to agree initially. They thought the public would be fascinated by this intriguing discovery from the red planet, but they severely underestimated how the public would react. Instead of viewing the face on Mars as an interesting geological curiosity, people immediately began attributing it to an advanced alien species. The implications were staggering if this structure was artificial. It meant that intelligent life had once existed on Mars. NASA found itself in an uncomfortable position. They had inadvertently released what many believed to be evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, and the story was spreading like wildfire. Something had to be done to contain the situation. The very next day after the image was released, NASA wheeled out Dr. Gerald Soffin, the Viking mission's project scientist, to present a contradictory statement that would throw planetary enthusiasts into complete chaos. Standing at the podium, microphone in hand, Soffin delivered what can only be described as a masterclass in damage control. "Isn't it peculiar," he said to the assembled press, "what tricks of light and shadow can do? When we took another picture, a few hours later, it all vanished. It was just a trick. Just the way the light fell on it. Can you believe that?" NASA was essentially telling the world that they had taken multiple images of the same location and found no face in any of the subsequent photographs. The implication was clear. The face was nothing more than an optical illusion, created by specific lighting conditions. But here's the thing that should make everyone's alarm bells start ringing. NASA claimed they had taken these additional images that proved the face was an illusion, but they never actually presented these images to the public. Where was the evidence supporting their claims? Where were these multiple photographs that supposedly showed nothing but ordinary rock formations? The answer is simple and deeply troubling. They didn't exist, at least not in the form NASA claimed. Now, let's take a step back and examine how this remarkable structure was actually discovered, because the circumstances surrounding its finding are almost as intriguing as the face itself. Remember, Viking 1 was orbiting Mars with a specific mission to find the perfect landing site for Viking 2. its robotic counterpart that would actually touch down on the Martian surface. According to NASA's official reports, Cydonia looked like an ideal location for this historic landing. The landscape appeared flat and stable. Visibility seemed adequate, and there were interesting rock formations and structures to explore, including, of course, the famous face. But here's where things get really suspicious. Just days after identifying Cydonia as the prime landing site, NASA suddenly announced that Viking 2 would be landing in a completely different location. A rocky, desolate region called Utopia, Planitia. Now, some of the scientists involved in the project noticed something rather odd about this change. Utopia Planitia wasn't exactly what you'd call an exciting location for a mission designed to search for signs of life or interesting geological formations. It was, frankly, rather boring. Just another stretch of Martian desert with little to recommend it. This begs a rather obvious question. If Cydonia was deemed suitable for landing initially, why did NASA suddenly change course? If the agency was genuinely committed to exploring Mars and potentially discovering evidence of past or present life, wouldn't Cydonia, with its intriguing formations, be exactly the kind of place they'd want to investigate? The truth is that there was far more in Cydonia than NASA was letting on. Far more than just a single face-like structure carved into the red landscape. If you thought the face was the only notable structure captured in Viking 1's images, you'd better prepare yourself for what comes next. Scattered around the Cydonian landscape were other formations that were equally extraordinary, equally impossible to dismiss as mere coincidence. At the top of this incredible list were the pyramids. Yes, you heard that right. Pyramids. Actual pyramid structures on the surface of Mars. Now, the debate about pyramids has always been fascinating here on Earth. Historians have long argued about who built the ancient pyramids and how they managed such incredible feats of engineering. Some say they were constructed by ancient Egyptians using techniques we still don't fully understand. Others suggest they were built by a completely different civilization, perhaps one that predates modern humans. There are even those who believe they were constructed by extraterrestrial visitors, given their mathematical precision and the fact that similar structures appear across different continents and time periods. But nobody, absolutely nobody, expected this debate to go interplanetary. Yet, there they were, captured in Viking 1's images. Pyramid structures scattered across the Cydonian region, not far from the humanoid face. Many scientists agreed that these formations bore a striking resemblance to ancient pyramids here on Earth, both in their shape and their apparent precision. If the face on Mars was a fascinating enigma, the pyramids clustered around it were even stranger. These structures weren't randomly scattered across the landscape. They appeared to be deliberately positioned, grouped together in a way that gave the distinct impression of an ancient city. People started calling this area the City Square, and it's not hard to see why. Within this Martian city square, there weren't just a few pyramid structures. There were multiple formations, some of which stood out so dramatically that they required independent study. One of these unique pyramids became known as the Fortress, and the name fits perfectly. Unlike the other pyramids in the city square, this structure had a distinctive appearance. It resembled a collapsed pyramid, as if some catastrophic event had damaged it millennia ago. But right near the fortress was an even more intriguing structure, the D&M Pyramid, named after the NASA imaging scientists Vincent DiPietro and Gregory Molinar, who first identified and studied it in detail. The D&M Pyramid had characteristics that were simply too absurd to ignore. This was an enormous five-sided pyramid with perfect symmetry, rising more than 1.5 miles in height. Scientists calculated that this structure was so massive it was 3 times the size of the largest pyramid in Egypt. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about a structure on Mars that dwarfs the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of humanity's most impressive architectural achievements. And this Martian pyramid displayed the kind of mathematical precision and geometric perfection that would be challenging to achieve even with modern technology. Of course, skeptics were quick to jump on these discoveries, just as they had with the face. Despite the fact that the DNM pyramid showed symmetry around 2 different axes and appeared to be uniquely constructed, critics attempted to attribute the anomaly to natural processes, just as NASA had called the face an optical illusion. They dismissed the DNM pyramid as a coincidental rock formation. This dismissive attitude persisted until a professional satellite imaging scientist decided to take matters into his own hands. His name was Errol Torin, and he worked for the Defense Mapping Agency, a job that primarily involved studying satellite images to determine which formations were natural and which were artificial. Torin took the Viking 1 images home as a personal project and studied them in his spare time. Given his professional expertise in identifying artificial structures from satellite imagery, his opinion carried significant weight in the scientific community. When Torin completed his analysis of the 1976 Viking 1 images, he reached a conclusion that left everyone absolutely stunned. Every single object visible in the images, including the face and all the pyramid structures, appeared to be artificial in nature. Once again, the public was thrown into chaos. Did this mean they had been lied to from the beginning? Had NASA been deliberately concealing evidence of an ancient Martian civilization? After conducting more detailed studies, Torin observed that not only had the humanoid head and pyramids been artificially constructed, but the DNM pyramid appeared to be the masterpiece of whoever had built these structures. This is what Torin had to say about his findings. The natural geological hypothesis fails to provide a mechanism that can explain the formation of the DNM pyramid. The pentagonal shape and bilateral symmetry of this object resembles no terrestrial landform seen to date in our solar system. But the revelations didn't stop there. Torin deduced that the DNM pyramid and the other structures in the city square aligned with advanced geometric principles that would be nearly impossible to achieve through natural processes. To consolidate their research, DiPietro and Molinar brought in two more experienced researchers to help validate their findings. The first was Dr. Mark Carlotto, an expert in remote sensing, image processing, pattern recognition, and other space-related activities. The second was Dr. Richard Hoagland, an award-winning author and NASA consultant. The incorporation of these highly credentialed experts into the image decryption team meant one thing. It was time to hear opinions from true professionals in the field. And what they had to say about the structures visible in the Viking images was deeply unsettling. Dr. Carlotto and Hoagland pointed out that not only did the angles of the DNM pyramid match advanced geometric principles, but the structure also showed remarkable similarities to pyramids found on Earth. How could this be possible? Hoagland noted that the pyramids in the Mars images followed mathematical constants like phi 1.618 and pi 3.14, numbers that are rarely found in purely natural formations. These mathematical relationships are typically associated with conscious design and deliberate construction. This led to a mind-bending theory that challenged everything we thought we knew about the history of our solar system. What if Mars had once hosted an ancient civilization, and these pyramids were their legacy? Think about it for a moment. These structures are clustered around a particular region known as Cydonia. It's not such a far-fetched idea to imagine Cydonia as a place that was once teeming with life. A region where Martians might have engaged in normal, everyday activities, building cities and monuments that would outlast their creators by millions of years. While there's no evidence of existing life on Mars today, the discovery of these sophisticated artificial structures points to one inescapable conclusion. There was intelligent life there in the past. Before long, theories began emerging about these latest discoveries on the Red Planet. After taking a closer look at the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico, and even Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, scientists decided there was an uncanny resemblance to the ones on Mars, not just in their positioning but also in their mathematical precision. This observation led researchers to ask an extraordinary question. Could the same architects have shaped both Mars and Earth? Some investigators began to suggest that if an advanced species had visited Earth in the distant past, they might also have stopped at Mars along the way. What if the pyramids on Mars were actually a message for Earth-based beings? A kind of cosmic calling card left by ancient visitors to let us know we were not alone in the universe. But as expected, NASA dismissed these claims outright. Their official position was that the so-called pyramids were simply mesas that had been eroded by wind over millions of years. According to the scientific establishment, these pyramid-like formations had been shaped by countless Martian sandstorms over geological timescales. However, skeptics refused to accept such a superficial debunking. For them, the odds of such geometrically precise formations occurring naturally were far too remote to ignore. If we believe NASA's explanation that these pyramids are just natural formations, why do they bear such striking similarities to structures on Earth? An even more intriguing thought is this: if they really are artificial, who built them and why? Fortunately, the D&M team refused to give up their investigation despite NASA's dismissive stance regarding the face and pyramids. They felt there was much more beneath the surface waiting to be discovered. To uncover what that more might be, DiPietro and Molinar returned to the original image where it all began, image 35A72. At first, it was quite a challenge to locate this particular image in the vast Viking archives, but after thoroughly reviewing all the Viking image files to determine what the truth actually was, they decided to search for the second image that NASA claimed showed the face as an optical illusion. But guess what they found? The image was misfiled, nowhere to be found in the expected location. Eventually, they did discover another image of the face, but it was different from the second image NASA had described to the public. However, this newly discovered image was even more shocking than the original. The recently uncovered image had even more detail and less shadow on the left side of the face. But it gets better. After more detailed examination, the second image showed two eye sockets, a nose and a mouth, just like the first image. But here, what left the researchers absolutely astounded. The face-like structure in the second image had two parallel sides, both deduced to be more than hundreds of yards long and perfectly straight. Furthermore, the edges of these parallel sides were perfectly curved, forming the contour of a face that was even more realistic than the first image shown to the public. But there was one more decisive factor that changed everything. DiPietro discovered evidence of a pupil in the left eye socket. Once again, the scientific world was thrown into chaos. What was happening in the world of space discoveries? The answer to this question came from the D&M team. Dr. Hoglan and Dr. Carlotto volunteered to examine the images more closely, finding even more incredible details. They discovered what appeared to be teeth in the mouth area and a pattern of stripes in the facial regions. Now NASA had to step in if they wanted to successfully refute such detailed findings. The research team pressed the scientific establishment to provide an explanation for these structures, despite the fact that these formations were far too precise to ignore. NASA continued to insist that the researchers were fabricating conspiracy theories. This continued until Dr. Hoagland took the matter to Coast AM, a radio program with a massive audience. Before long, NASA found itself under intense pressure to return to Mars and produce new photographs of the much-debated structures. And in 1996, they did indeed make another visit to Mars. In 1996, NASA sent another observer to the Red Planet. But the results were more than disappointing. While enthusiasts expected detailed images that would either reinforce or debunk the claims about the Martian structures, all they got back were excuses. Dr. Bevan French, the principal scientist of NASA's 1996 launch project, went on air to inform people of a shocking fact. NASA was unguaranteeing any images from the observer. Sorry, what? But before viewers could even process Dr. French's disheartening message, they received even more devastating news. NASA suddenly announced that the observer probe had disappeared. Now there were no new images to refute or confirm the analysis of the face-like structure or the pyramids. The question of truth remained hanging in the air for years. But this changed in 1998. 2 years after the failed Mars Observer mission, NASA returned with a new development. They claimed to have a more detailed image of the face, as popular demand had requested. But what they presented was too astounding to accept. The images published on that fateful 5th of April 1998 looked even more grainy than the first image captured in 1976. The photographs spoke of poor lighting, bad weather conditions, and multiple enhancement filters. When these grainy images were released, the DNM team was deeply disappointed and didn't hesitate to express their opinion. People said the image looked as if it had been scratched by a cat in its litter box. From that moment on, the 1998 images became known as the cat box. It was clear that these photos had been manipulated by NASA. But one thing was yet clear. Why was NASA working so hard to make people give up on the face-like structure in Cydonia? Why were their statements so contradictory year after year? What if they were hiding the possibility that extraterrestrial life existed on Mars? It might surprise you to know that the face and pyramids are indeed only intriguing structures on the Martian surface. In 2002, NASA's Mars Global Surveyor captured another strange formation on the Martian surface. An intricate network of intersecting lines located in the southern hemisphere near a region called Lucas Planum. You could call it strange because it looked like an ancient city design in grid form. It didn't take long before this rectangular network of lines was dubbed the Inca City. While skeptics tried to discredit this structure, researchers responded by pointing out how the Inca City resembled the infamous Machu Picchu in Peru. But NASA insisted that Mars's acclaimed Inca City was nothing more than cracked ice. The scientific body maintains that over millions of years, dry ice and frost cycles could have carved these patterns into the surface, creating the illusion of a planned city. Perhaps we would have believed NASA, except there are even more suspicious structures on the Red Planet. Enter the Phobos monolith. In 2009, legendary astronaut Buzz Aldrin dropped a bombshell during an interview. While discussing future missions to Mars, he stated, "We should visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this small, potato-shaped object that orbits Mars once every 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, 'Who put that there? Who put that there?'" Phobos is one of Mars's moons, and on its surface stands the massive monolith Aldrin spoke about. It's estimated to be approximately 85 meters in height, unusually tall, casting a long shadow across the moon's surface. Can we call this perfectly structured monument merely a geological oddity? Because that's what NASA says. It is a simple rock left by an asteroid impact. But even the monolith on Phobos is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Martian structures. High-resolution images from NASA have shown the presence of glass tubes that some researchers interpret as remains of an underground transport system from an ancient civilization. What about the perceived collapsed structure called the dome? Even this was deduced to be an ancient shelter. In other images published by the Curiosity rover, a rectangular entrance resembling a door was discovered. Astronauts and scientists wondered if this door was the entrance to an underground base somewhere. Or even more terrifyingly, the anomaly reaching skyward, known as the White Tower. These and many more artifacts on the Red Planet have demonstrated that there's more than we've been told. But if an ancient civilization existed on Mars, what happened to them? The answer lies in research conducted by the Curiosity rover. In August 2012, Curiosity arrived on Mars and analyzed surface samples. What they found was astonishing. Instead of normal soil, they found evidence of nuclear warfare. The soil contained large amounts of xenon-129, and guess what? There's only one known process that creates this isotope: the detonation of nuclear weapons. So, if an ancient civilization existed on Mars, there's a strong possibility they were annihilated in a nuclear war. As a result, they left behind these structures we know today. But if they built those monuments, how advanced was this civilization to have erected such magnificent structures? The unexplainable structures on Mars remain a topic of endless debate between scientists, researchers, and government agencies. One side pulls, and the other side won't yield. The presence of overwhelming evidence makes it even more difficult for enthusiasts to side with NASA. From the face to the pyramids, from the Inca city to the White Tower, there's too much unexplained evidence to ignore. It's clear that an ancient civilization might have existed on the Red Planet, and to think that this civilization might have also been on Earth is incredible. What do you think about these unexplainable Martian structures? Which side are you on? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!